Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user TrainingMortgage766. Am I the a-hole for kicking my uncle out of his house? I, 23 male, was very close to my grandfather, who passed away last year. He left me his entire estate, including the house after my grandma divorced him. Before he passed, my grandma had asked him to let her son, my uncle, 50 male, not biologically related to my grandfather, rent the house. They set up a 3-year contract for $1,800 a month, and at the end, he could buy the house for $377,000. The contract ends in 6 weeks, and after a lengthy probate process, the house is now officially in my name. My uncle asked if I'd extend the contract because of high interest rates, but I didn't want to. I'm hoping to buy my own home soon. My grandma pressured me saying, "It's family," so I reluctantly agreed to extend it for 3 more years. While I was waiting for a new contract to be drafted, my uncle asked if he could start construction on the house. I said no, but then a friend of mine who was doing the work told me that my uncle had already started construction without my permission. I went to check it out and sure enough, major work had been done without permits. I confronted him and he denied it until I showed him photos. He claimed it was his house and that he could do what he wanted. Later, during a family holiday, my uncle and his girlfriend ambushed me, proposing a 5-year contract with lenient rent terms, no restrictions on construction, and permission to sublet. I refused and said I'd have my lawyer draft the contract instead. During probate, my uncle and his girlfriend discussed what they would prefer contract-wise that left it more open-ended. I continuously listened to their wants. However, I told them in the end I would send them a contract drafted by my lawyer once the house was in my name. A few months later, my uncle, his girlfriend, and my grandmother sent me the 5-year contract they had proposed during the family holiday. I firmly declined. My grandmother then called and berated me for not signing, claiming that if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have inherited anything from my grandpa. Why? Because she divorced him? At that point, I lost my temper and said, "You have to be effing kidding me." She responded, "Your grandpa would be disappointed in you for using that language with me." I replied, "Don't use my grandpa against me," and hung up. Since then, my grandma and uncle have cut me off. I had my lawyer draft a new contract, 3 years, no subletting, and a clause requiring my approval for construction. The rest of the original contract from my grandpa is the same. Now my uncle is saying he can only qualify for $350,000 instead of the $377,000 he owes, and my family is pressuring me to accept the lower offer, accusing me of forcing him out. Am I the a-hole for refusing his contract, insisting he pay the full $377,000, signing my contract or moving out, and standing my ground despite family pressure? Well, OP, no, you're not the a-hole, and maybe the rest of the family that's telling you that you should accept the lowball offer, they can pitch in the additional $27,000 that's missing. Personally, I hate matters of family mixed in with money. I think those are like oil and water, nothing good can come of it, ever. Now, is there room for negotiation? Sure, but they made you an offer and you said no. Then you gave them an offer and that's the final one because guess what? You own the house. Additionally, if you really wanted to be mean to your uncle, I think you could force him to remove or take down any of the alterations he's made already to that house because he didn't have the permits for it. And your grandma claiming that you wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for her, give me a break. In summary, no OP, you are not the a-hole and good for you for standing your ground. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments. Dina Felice says, "I'm afraid my financial situation does not allow me to accept anything lower than the amount in the contract. However, I certainly have no objection to you loaning him the difference since it's clear you don't think it's that much money. Actually, I kinda love that idea. I think everyone trying to persuade me to accept the lower offer should get together and all give or loan uncle enough money to pay what he owes. After all, he's family, right?" Not the a-hole. After how poorly your uncle treated you, he's lucky you even considered any new contract with him. After that stunt with the construction, I certainly wouldn't want him to stay there one more day than I was legally required to allow him, unless he purchased the property outright. I wouldn't trust him not to do more damage to the property and would want to disentangle myself as completely as possible. And all the family members pressuring you are hypocrites in addition to being a-holes. If they think it is so important to help your uncle, they could help him. Not to mention, you are family too, and they aren't concerned with helping you. Min Granny says, before you have them sign the contract for $377,000, get an appraisal. With real estate values in the past few years, the property could be worth much more. Armed with the true value, you can do a take it or leave it stance with no further haggling about the price, or just sell it to an outside party and make more money. And Cosmic Dustarian says, not the a-hole. If he doesn't sign the contract and comes up with the agreed upon amount, start eviction proceedings and sell the house. Get your lawyer to draft a letter to that effect. Your uncle is under the delusion that he owns this house. He leases it, and he signed a contract for $377,000. Either he pays up or the contract is void. It doesn't sound like there is any love lost here, as long as you're good with having grandma and the family mad at you. Alright, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, that he should not budge and just enforce the contract. Now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Hello everyone, first off, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who commented and supported me through this ordeal. I genuinely appreciated all the advice and the emotional validation that came my way. I tried my best to read as many comments as I could, and the consensus was clear. I am not the a-hole. Following the advice I received here, I made the decision not to extend the contract or lower the price. After reading the responses, I sent my uncle a message responding to his request to lower the price, saying, I will take this as you declining the extension and will expect the money by November 1st, 2024. Since then, it appears I may have been officially cut off from my grandma and uncle. We happened to show up at the same restaurant last week and there was absolutely no acknowledgement from them. Additionally, a close family member passed away recently and no one from my family reached out to me about it except for my mother. Despite the family strain, as of this morning, I officially received the funds for the house in full. That has been the biggest relief after all the stress of this past year. Again, thank you for all the advice, support, and truth checks I needed. Will it be good for you for standing your ground and getting the money that you were owed? As to the family that apparently cut you off because you wouldn't take a hit, well, I guess good riddance is in order. So here's wishing you the best in the future, OP. Thanks so much for sharing and take care. And now, let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit entitled People, and it's by user RamenNoodle620. Entitled Uncle wants me to fund and co-sign on a loan for a home. In a lifetime of entitled behavior from my aunts and uncles, this one may take the cake. One of my uncles, Travis, is looking to buy a home. He mentioned this to me a couple of weeks ago and was asking about the process. I suggested that he and his family get their funds together sooner than later. By this, I meant getting the money he is owed by my other two uncles, Randy and George. Figured they may have some other questions once they get more into the process and did not think any more on it. For background, Randy and George owe Travis money because Travis gave them money as a down payment on a house they were all supposed to own together. Travis and Randy's family were supposed to live there, which they did for a time. Travis's family moved out due to size limitations, but were apparently paying rent there. Why it made sense for them to pay rent while having already put a down payment in and being supposedly co-owners, I don't know. I told Travis when this all happened that he should be careful and make sure he is covered legally. He did not do that. Once he moved out, Randy and George rented out the now vacant second unit. Randy pretty much lives for free while George didn't have to put any money into getting ownership of a house. Randy and George were supposed to pay Travis back for his down payment. It has been 4 to 5 years since. Then, the other night, Travis called me. Starts off with small talk and then he eventually mentioned buying a home again. So I ask if he has some kind of question about it for me. He says he does and he wants to know if I would co-sign on as support on the loan and help with the down payment. So, co-signing and providing a down payment for a home I have no interest in buying or managing with someone. Travis said he spoke to Randy and George about getting his money. They told him they needed some time, but to talk to me about providing support for the loan in the meantime. Thought I heard wrong, so asked him to confirm for me that instead of getting money from his brothers that owed him, he was once again listening to their advice by coming to me to co-sign on a loan and give him money for a house. Told him no, this is not something I want to do, and then said I had to go before hanging up. I could not believe the damn gall to even ask this. Just reinforces why I continue to keep my distance with certain family members. And here we've seen another example, in my opinion, as to why mixing family and money is not a good thing, particularly if the family in question is known to not pay the money back. In any case, no judgment to give here, OP. I think you are absolutely doing the right thing. What do you guys think? Would you co-sign that loan and give him the money? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Sweeper of Chimneys says, that's a good example of why I won't do business with family. Unbelievable that you were asked to fund his house simply because he won't get his finances and legal situation with the other house in order. Hope he pops his head out and gets a good lawyer. Solomon D. Rand says, so, to sum up, your brothers told you to give them money so they could buy a house to share, then rented out your room and kept all the money, and now they want you to do the same thing to me? Why don't they just give you the money they made renting your room for the past few years? Tumbleweed Human 2934 says, will this be the end of this conversation with your uncle, or is this just chapter 1 of a saga? Will the other two uncles decide to band together to go after you to put up the money instead of putting up the money they owe, like in so many other stories we come across on this sub? I feel like it might be heading in that direction. And OP responds, doesn't matter if they band together or make solo attempts. The answer is, and will be no. I don't even like them in general, let alone giving them money. And Armadillo of Doom says, you're asking me to make the same mistakes you did because the people who owe you money won't pay? Absolutely not. That's just wow. So the community's basically in agreement. OP did good by just saying no, and yeah, the brothers should pay the other brother the money back, but that is not OP's concern. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Visited my mom yesterday so she could go trick-or-treating with us. Got some more information from her about this that actually made me laugh out loud at how ridiculous, entitled, and delusional this ask is. Not only did they ask me to co-sign on a loan, they also asked my dad to help fund the down payment. Fairly certain that by help, they mean pay for the entire down payment. My dad said no. My uncle apparently can get a loan, but it's not enough for what they want. What they want is a two-family home relatively close to the city we live near. They do not want to go too far, which is what they would have to do based on the loan he can get. And they only want a multi-family home, so they can rent out one unit. Their grand idea is for my dad to pay the down payment, me to co-sign so they can get a more expensive home, rent out one unit at the house to help pay the mortgage, and they would pay my dad back as they can. They could not even suggest that the rental income will go straight to my dad. They went from going to the people who actually owed them money to asking my dad and I to buy them a home. My relatives have a history of entitlement, but this has gone beyond anything they've done before. I am still flabbergasted that they thought they could even ask this of me and my dad. Well, OP, there's all sorts of people in this world, and people like your uncles that are entitled like this, that just believe this is a proper ask. Well, they do exist, unfortunately, and you're related to them, so it's a good thing that you do not fall for their schemes. And also, good on your dad. No is the right answer in this situation. So here's wishing you the best in the future, OP. Thanks so much for sharing and take care. And now, let's finish this video with another post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user Dartheril. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend next time then, after I missed her wedding? We are childhood friends. We have a brother-sister relationship. This gal married at age 23 for the first time. Her husband was a nice guy, good looking, good character. They got divorced 1.5 years after because my dear friend wasn't feeling it anymore. After some time, she found someone else. No, she wasn't cheating. This guy is someone I approve of too. Sadly, I got sick and hospitalized just before the wedding and couldn't make it, so her and her husband visited me. We had some laughs and she said, "I wish you were there with us too. I wanted to have my third dance with you." Context. First dance is for the groom, second for the father, and third is for the brother if the bride has any. To lighten the mood, note that I was under heavy medication. I blurted out, "Don't worry, I won't miss the next one." After I said that, her husband was laughing on and she slapped me and left. A week has passed and she doesn't speak to me. Well, OP, maybe it wasn't the funniest joke in the world. Still, within context, it is somewhat funny and the husband was laughing. Plus, you were apparently under the influence of some drug or something, I don't know. But her reaction was over the top. Maybe she could have said, "You know what, I don't find that funny." But slapping you and then walking away? No, where does she think she live, in a soap opera? I think she owes you an apology. Maybe you could also apologize for the joke, if she found it rude or if she found it insulting or something like that. Sure, but first she needs to address the slap. That is not right in any setting. When you raise your hands at someone, you're giving permission for them to raise their hand back. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Dip Tripston says, "I'm gonna give you a pass because 1, you were medicated, and 2, it's a funny line." Poppy's Melody says, quote, "I was on a lot of painkillers and was trying to make you laugh. I'm sorry I made light of your feelings. I also really wanted to be there." End quote. Not the a-hole. That was diabolically funny. Also, that guy laughing may have signed up for number 3. 3 smiley face emojis. Mission Bet 5035 says, "Everybody sucks here. You shouldn't have made that joke as it was obviously a sore spot for her. But she sucks too for slapping you. That was an overreaction. If you value the friendship, just apologize for hurting her feelings. Did you actually think she'd get married a third time? If so, maybe reevaluate why you think that. As you say, you don't think she's responsible for the first divorce, so why think that this marriage wouldn't work? If you value the friendship, then just let it be. By the way, it doesn't matter if the husband laughed because your friend wasn't laughing." Big eyes. The Jekyll Reborn says, "It's not the nicest joke, but she definitely overreacted. To slap someone who is currently hospitalized is crazy." And Lil Happy Pumpkin 1020 says, "Not the a-hole, it was funny. She slapped you. That is not okay. Everyone is kinda glossing over that. I wouldn't count that friendship over if it was me. No matter how insulted you may feel, hitting someone is wrong. You were heavily medicated and recovering. She should be thankful you or the hospital don't press charges, taking into account the staff didn't see what happened and reported it." Alright, well, the community is in between, not the a-hole, everybody sucks here, it wasn't a good joke, it was a hilarious joke, but the top voted comment was not the a-hole. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. My friend contacted me and invited me for drinks. They were back from their honeymoon and we went to a pub we frequent for another round of celebration since I missed pretty much everything. We both apologized to each other, me for the joke and her for slapping me. I asked about the silence. They told me it was a combination of both being abroad for a honeymoon and feeling awkward after the slap. She admitted found it funny after she cooled down. Her husband found the joke hilarious, apparently, but he made me promise to pay the alimony if they get divorced, so now I have motivation to make this marriage last as long as I can. Aside from that, everything is cool. We got to have the dance I missed, too. Well, OP, it's nice to know that you were able to talk to your friend, clear the air, and move on from it. And you got to have the dance. So here's wishing you the best in the future, OP, and hopefully you don't have to pay that alimony. Take care and thanks for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.